Welcome back to Open Studio. All right, get that done, that done, that done. All right, so much to do. I was working on the black, and I feel really good about where that's going. I'm gonna finish up the black and see if we can kind of knock out the rest of this area here. I think that's gonna be the way to go. Gosh. It's just so many different things that, so many different ways you could go with the painting like this. You could just, you could pick any path and it would be right. So, yeah. We've got black here. This spot right here needs to be super dark. It just got kind of forgotten right here. So we're gonna start with that. So how have you all been this week? Good, I hope? On this lovely Wednesday. And that's not a lie. I told you last week that I'll frequently record several of these Open Studios at once. Just kind of string them together and then, post them as I go. But it is actually Wednesday here, so the episode that's going up today is obviously done and ready to fly. But it is Wednesday, so I could say happy Wednesday to you. So we talked a little bit about where this painting falls in the series, and that it is the most involved one of all of them. Even though it's a series of paintings, they are put up. So all of them have been available. I've been super fortunate in the fact that they are all kind of finding collectors. Some finding collectors before they're even done, which is great. So even though they're a series, the series only, for me, only kind of highlights what is common between those paintings. It doesn't mean that everything is common between them. And this painting is a great example of that. This painting again is the most involved out of the group, out of the 5. It will command the highest value when it's done. So that's all good. That's all good for me. You could create a series, and I've seen it done before. A series just means they have something in common for me. So you could have a series of paintings where they're all the same price. You're sticking, the 543s to me are a good example of that. All those little black and white paintings I do, what really ties them all together is the size of them, how many I do a week, and that they're always the same price. That's the thing with that. But it doesn't always have to be that way, Like I said, this one will command the highest value out of the group by far, and that's okay. Of course, the goal for every artist selling their work is to get to a point where there is a common price, and it's not only, well, it's derived by the quality of your work over your career, but a big part of the entire value is your name. Your people are paying to have the painting that was done by you. So it's a great feeling. I'm not there yet, as far as just having some crazy number, and that's what it is, regardless of what it is. Drawing, painting took 2 hours, took 100 hours. It's still this whatever number your paintings tend to go for. So be good to get there. So we're always working for that. There's some bright highlights on the top of this, whatever this bezel is here on the top of this. I think it's a gauge. I really should get my early 1900s Harley playbook out and find out what exactly all these parts are the actual names. It's not good that I am blowing the anatomy of this bike, you know, not knowing what different things are. It's okay. I mean, you know, the nice thing about doing this is the first time I painted a bike this old, and the nice thing about it is I'm learning a whole bunch of stuff as I'm doing it too, so you guys just get to see me flopping around for now. I've already decided, I think the next, no, you know, maybe I should finish the shifter too. Yep, I wanted to get into the letters on the tank next, but I think I need to, I do need to kind of button up this whole area just to kind of get it off, you know, just to put it aside, just to say, okay, that's all done. And again, the reason for that for me is if I don't do that, if I just leave something hanging, like the, you know, last episode where I left this clip undone, that's what happens. I just, you know, it'll sit there forever and then I'll keep forgetting to get back to it. And so it's nice to just kind of button up an area. Like I obviously haven't had to think of the fender down here. I haven't had to think of the fender since we finished it. Which is great. Works out good. Alright, so the shifter knob, let's take care of that. That's going to need a little bit of help as far as the edge on that, because I've kind of, when I did the repair on the sidecar and all that, or when I added the sidecar, I kind of cut into the edge of that shifter. So I'm going to grab a little bit of blue, hopefully this daylight blue. Well, this daylight blue might work up here. I could add a little bit more water to this wet palette. Alright, and what I'm looking for is a really light sky blue. It's the base color for this. Obviously this shifter knob takes a lot of contact, so it is really smooth, really shiny. It's not chrome by any stretch, but it's definitely hand polished, and I don't mean, you know, specifically polished. I mean it's been handled so much that it's just worn and smooth. So we're going to kind of cut that all back in, get that edge back in first, and then we'll deal with the rest of it. Could airbrush this. Actually, I probably should airbrush this, but it's okay. Again, this just takes longer. It takes longer to get this really smooth and even with the paintbrush. The paintbrush just wants to put things on really tight and sharp. So it has a lot of, you know, well, paintbrush strokes. So it just takes going over it and filling in the gaps and being patient with it. But again, airbrush, if I cut out a perfect circle, mixed up the blue, and then painted it, it would be done in 5 seconds. One section doesn't want to cover. I don't know why, but I'll win. Down the bottom here, it kind of has a lot of shading on it, so I don't have to be super crazy about getting that really smooth. It's just this middle section right here that's in kind of full light that really shows, so I want to make sure that's nice and even. There's some great highlights on this too from the lights in the building or the room. We'll get those in there too. A couple of little highlights on this thing here. Throw those in. And since I've got this color, and this color is going to work well. Actually, let's move this over so you're more centered here. This light highlight, I can then finish up the highlights on this clip that we worked on last week. So this edge of the clip has got kind of a bright edge on it. So we'll get that in there. As well as, this is actually should be white, this highlight, because it's really bright, which we can do. Again, might as well finish it, right? So we don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to grab straight up white for this highlight. And this highlight is just along this edge right here. That's lovely. All right, good. Same thing with the rest of the hand grip here. There's some highlights on there too, so I might as well just grab them and get them done. On a quicker painting, you know, the highlights sometimes all come at once across the entire painting. You know, that's the last step in a lot of instances where you just, you know, you've done the whole painting, and then you put these super bright highlights on, and everything looks great, and you're ready to go, and it's done. With this, it's so involved across the whole thing. Again, I don't want to miss anything, so there's a good chance that, you know, I forget to put the bright highlights on this little section up here. So we'll get those done now and then not have to worry about it. There are some pretty highlights on here too. Again, you know, these highlights are like the icing on the cake, literally. You don't want half your cake made up of icing, because as good as icing is, in that level it gets gross. The same thing with these highlights. If you put too many of them on here, they will overpower things and make it look trashy. All right, good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it just, all right, I'll use my words. I will leave it just like that. Good. And again, I got to respray the background again. That corner got jammed again, even with the UVLS on it. This painting has seen so much handling. It's not funny. All right, let me look at the, how do I want to do this? I may just be able to pull this off with the black, because I think I got enough blue in that knob. All right, yeah, I'm going to try this with just the black and see what happens. What could go wrong? Besides everything. All right. So the bottom half of this has, you know, just a lot of the shading you would expect. The shading on the bottom of this ball. So this, again, this opaque black has a lot of brown in it. So I want to be careful. This overall needs to have kind of a bluish feel to it. We'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be okay. I don't think I have to add any blue to this to get it to work. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so that's good. Now the other side of it too is there's the top side of it. So I got to really go light with this across the top of this. And this is what all the little bright highlights are going to stand on. You'll see that in a second. So do that, get the top of this, kind of darken that. And yeah, just like that. Now the fun part. The fun part are those highlights. So there are a lot of them on this, because again, this was taken at the photos taken at a bike show inside a big convention center. So there are a lot of lights, you know, evenly spaced across the top. And I'm going to take that advantage. So this thing's a little polished steel ball on the top now. I usually don't like working from photos in car shows like this inside because of all the reflections. There's so many reflections that it makes it almost look, you know, it makes it look inside, you know, it makes it look unnatural. But sometimes it just works. Like I had done a painting of Mike LaValle's Dead Sled, the year he had brought it to SEMA. So I grabbed just a screenshot from a video interview that he was doing, and his car was in the background. And the grill, it's an old Mercury. I forget what year it is. I think 53. But in any event, it had the big grill with all the walrus teeth on it, you know, then the front, just a string of chrome. And there were a billion highlights on that grill. Seeing that, I just knew it was the only way to do that painting. And it really was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun to do too. There was just a million of these highlights. But you can see how just those few little highlights really work well to kind of identify that as what it is, which is that, you know, everything else is kind of, let's see if I can focus here. Come on, what are we doing? Yeah, everything else is, there we go. Everything else is just kind of, you know, mottled and rusty and textural, but that, you know, that little guy right there has been, you know, grabbed so many times that it's just super smooth and shiny and And that tells the whole story right there. And again, here's my big fat thumb next to it. It's such a tiny little piece of the painting. But believe it or not, and this is all right, so we're going to sidetrack just a quick second here, because the whole composition and everything really, really plays into this painting well. When you have a painting like this, or any painting for me, I love to have like a triangle type of thing going on. So, which means if you have some sort of triangle in your painting, it just keeps people engaged. They'll bounce from corner to corner of the triangle. So right now I have 2 parts of that triangle done. This little shiny bit right here, the highlight, and I need one more down in here somewhere. And I already know which one it's going to be. There is the control rods here. These are really shiny again. And so that will set up that kind of bright triangle in the painting. And that'll help keep people kind of into this painting. They won't just fly off into, you know, the next piece of work. It'll keep them dragged in there. So this is an instance where like for the petals here too, I may like push the shininess of those as well. Again, I need something really bright down here to kind of build that triangle. And that's how it goes. So you can do that triangle with anything. You could do it with color. You could do it with value. It just really is a really powerful method of keeping someone engaged in your painting, and they don't even know they're doing it. So, all right. That said, let's move on. We are there. I like it. I like it. I'm going to let this part rest a little bit now. Meaning I'm going to move on and then maybe introduce some more brown as we go. I know I got to put some more brown up in these repair areas here, but we're going to move on. So I think the next thing I want to tackle is to get this lettering done. All right. The lettering is, again, it's super worn and super like kind of not even there really, but it's yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow ochre. Sorry for the volume of that. So this is detail yellow ochre. I got to put this out on the palette. I'm going to move this brush. How about we do that? That way you're not looking at the airbrush hose. I do love these Grex airbrush hoses a lot. They are, it's great. It's super durable. They're actually really popular in the baking industry, the food industry, makeup, because I'll show you. So this hose has a rubber, like, you know, sleeve on it essentially. So in an instance where you really need to keep things clean, like in food or makeup, obviously you're not going to have your hose look like mine. It's got paint all over it, but you could easily wipe this off and clean it and sterilize it. So everything that's involved in, you know, the cooking process has nothing to do with, you know, your dirty airbrush. So the reason why you'd use an airbrush in cooking is something like decorating cakes. You know, you can use airbrushing for that. The other nice thing is they offer this really cool little pressure valve too. So this, I can adjust the airflow into the brush, which is really nice. Yeah, I went this way. I'm turning it off here. And this little micro valve, air valve, also has a quick connect on it. So I can use all my quick connect fittings. Makes things really fast. So yes, you got to look at the hose and now you know why I like it so much. All right, but for now we're putting this over here because we don't want to get that in the way. All right, so for this, I've got yellow ochre on the palette now. I've got the white, so that's all I'm going to need. So the lettering is really cool in that it's the same as any other worn paint on this bike. Grab some of that yellow ochre and some of the white. I may need to add a little bit of black to this. No, I'm going to leave it bright. All right, so this is my worn paint color right here. Again, on the Harley lettering, it's all like modeled in half there and half gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a few edges. First, I'm going to make sure that this is going to be bright enough. Yeah, a little more yellow to it. There we go. All right. The other thing, this will turn kind of green because of the blue shift of the white. So I got to make sure I put enough of this on here. So what I'm doing with the lettering is little bits and pieces of it are intact. The rest of it is kind of gone. Oops, sorry about the air conditioning compressor. Sitting right next to me. It's warm here in late August. late August. It's early August and I'm doing this, but you guys are watching this in late August, so it's still warm here. All right. So again, I'm picking out little edges of this. I have it kind of, I could see the lettering from the HD stencil way back in the beginning that I kind of left. So I'm kind of going off of that. And I'm just picking random edges of this to sharpen up, and then I'll just, you know, kind of dab the paintbrush to kind of give that illusion that the paint is worn off, chipped away. And I'm going to repeat this. I can do, yeah, I'd love to nail this and get it done perfectly in the first, you know, first pass. But it also doesn't have to happen that way. I can do this. If I put too much of this yellow on, I can, you know, go back. I'm going to have to go back anyway to add more of the rust. So I can be kind of liberal with this application of paint, because I can always cover it later. I just don't want to have to go back again, go back to the step. And I realize I'm super far away and you guys can't see what's going on. I wish you could yell at me virtually, like, Steve, you can't see what you're doing. But hopefully now you can. Let's focus this up. Good. Now you can see what I'm doing. All right. Yeah, like the cross of the H here and where it kind of goes into the upright of the H, there's a bunch of paint here. So, you know, just kind of work with the photograph, the reference photo, but then, you know, if I need something to pop out a little bit more, it's no problem. And subtlety is the word with this, really. You know, I love that you can, you know, it says Harley. I mean, you know, it says Harley Davidson, but I don't want to sit there and paint the letters Harley Davidson. You know, it's just, it's not really what's going on in the image, and there's enough of it, you know, that your brain is going to pick up what's really supposed to be there. You know, I don't have to tell that story, you know, and that's the whole point of this. There is that element of letting someone's mind take over a little bit and filling in the gaps. Now again, on this Harley tank, there is a weird ghosted second logo, and I honestly don't understand what the deal is with that. It's not even centered. It actually goes diagonally like this. This one here is the original. So I know I said in the beginning that I really want to, you know, keep everything the same, and I even talked about the logo in the beginning, that I was going to still put that ghosted one in. But as I'm working on this, I'm more on the fence now of leaving that second one out. So I'll have to mull that over as I'm working. I may decide to do that, leave it out, or I may put it in. Honestly, I don't know yet. I do need to make that decision, though. That's not something that, so if I decide to put it in, and I do that and then don't like it, that's gonna not be good, because I'll have to redo this whole section to get rid of it, because it literally goes across these letters here. So that would be a tough repair. So I have to decide what I'm going to do really before I pull the trigger. I have to be committed to that decision. Same deal here, you know, I'm doing this now because there's going to be a lot of airbrushing that still needs to be done on this tank, and that airbrushing is going to help blend this stark yellow in. That is what we want. Ah, I can hear the cicadas outside too. It is a warm day today. I love it. I am super fond of summer. I know, and I understand, you know, especially people who live in really hot areas, it can be a drag. But I really, really do enjoy almost everything about summer. All right, what makes the R difficult, and it's why I jumped down to the D, I needed to give myself a visual break. That second weird Harley logo cuts across the R, and it's difficult to see the R. So I'm just going to have to kind of wing it. The other thing I really got to make sure of too is that, I have it generally kind of marked off here, but I got to make sure now that, as I put these little edges in, that the logo is really straight and lined up. This part of the tank doesn't really have any damage to it, like the front does here. So, if it was a big dent in it, then that makes it easy, because the Harley label could be involved in that dent, and then it doesn't have to be super straight. But this part of the tank is in really good shape. So I got to make sure, like this line across the top and the bottom, the lines that the letters are on, that's all really, really straight. That's good. It's good. If I go too far over, if I maybe push one of these edges out too far, it's a super easy fix. I'm not really worried about it. So, but again, the more on point I am in this stage, the less work I have to do on the next stages. There's a hair sticking out of this. And again, for those who haven't really been keeping up, or if you're new, welcome. Thanks for joining us. You have a lot of catching up to do. But that's okay. Just grab a drink and have at it. But for those who are new or haven't seen, the brush I use almost exclusively is this Winsor Newton Series 7 brush. This one is a 00. It's the one I've been favoring a lot lately, but I do use the 0 a lot as well. Do I have one sitting around? Yeah. This is a 0, but the letters have worn off. So it's a little bit bigger bristle, but still really great point. And yes, these are watercolor brushes, and I'm using acrylic with them. So I say it all the time, the watercolorists hate me. But this brush works so well for this detail stuff. It's crazy. So the trade-off is acrylic is and the cleaners are a little bit tougher on these natural hairs than should be intended. So again, these are watercolor brushes. Usually at the end of a watercolor session, you rinse out your brushes really well and you're ready to go. But this I'm using, rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol to clean them out, and the paint itself has, different kind of chemicals in it. So the bottom line is, with these brushes, for me, where a watercolor brush, a good watercolor brush like this, and one that's taken care of, could last the watercolorist years. I have Winsor Newton brushes that are from watercolorists that are years and years old. They just hold up really, really well. I can get probably about 1 year out of these brushes, which is fantastic for what I do with them. I beat the crap out of them. So they are extremely durable even for me, but they don't have the same life expectancy they would if I was using them as intended. And these brushes certainly are one of those things, they're the if it's not broke, don't fix it type of thing. I've been using these brushes for so long, I have no idea what else is out on the market. I don't know what other people's brushes are like even, because I never really look. I went through a short thing where I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll see what other people are doing, and I ordered some brushes, and some of them are really nice, but some of them weren't. So I'm like, after a while, I'm like, I'm spending this money, because a brush like this is about $20 US. And again, if you get a year out of it, that's amazing. That's a great return on investment. But you can get these small detail brushes for almost nothing, right? Depending on the brand and the company you buy. What I find with the really cheap ones, yeah, they may have a great point right out of the box or out of the tube, but a week later, they develop this hook because the bristles just give out. And that's even what happens with these too. As they get older, the very tip of the brush will just kind of hook over, and it makes it difficult to use. You can still use it. I never throw them out. You use them for different techniques, but yeah, that's kind of what happens. So with a cheap brush, that it happens much sooner. If you even get that tip out of it. Sometimes you buy those really inexpensive brushes, and they can't develop a tip at all. You know, they're cheap. You know. And I haven't had a whole bunch of luck with synthetic brushes at this size. I love synthetic brushes, but for the detail part, it's just the way the natural hair collects together at the end to make that point. That's what really makes this brush amazing. Even after I've used it, if I clean it, wet it, and then tap it out, this thing will be lightning straight, like just a blisteringly fine point. I find that's difficult to do with synthetic brushes, and I say that again with an asterisk next to it, that I haven't looked at a synthetic detail brush in I don't know, 20 years, 25 years. So they might actually have synthetic brushes that are really fantastic. I just don't know. All right. We are moving along. Slowly but surely. So I'm going to call this one here. We will pick up this logo where we left off next week. I don't want to run too much over 30 minutes just to keep these, again, bite-sized and happy. But we are going to put this on pause, and I will pick up exactly where I left off next week. All right. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends and neighbors. That would be amazing. And again, anytime you do that, it really helps the channel. There is the option now for the super chat. So if you really enjoyed it and want to support the channel, that is always appreciated. All that stuff goes right back into these feeds, and it's all earmarked for that. So thank you. All right. So for Steve Leahy and Open Studio and this really old Harley Davidson, I will catch you guys next time. Thanks a lot.